On May 21st, 2018, I met a guy over the weekend. We were at the same restaurant. He was with a wedding party, and I was there with my family, totally unrelated to the wedding or the couple, just there by chance where the reception was happening. He was polite and respectful, and he offered me his number. I took it and decided to text him later. We texted back and forth for a day or so before setting up a coffee meetup. We agreed to get together midday at a public place. I drove myself and, just to be cautious, texted a friend to let her know where I'd be and the guy's name. I thought I was being overly careful, but it felt right. The first 34 seconds of our chat were normal enough. We talked about work, school, basketball, and random things like that. Then I found out he was much younger than I'd guessed. He was 22, and I'm 35. He started off kind of shy and very respectful, but then he switched gears and told me a story about how, the night after the wedding, he got home and people were acting crazy. I asked what he meant, and he explained that he'd walked into his bedroom and found two lesbian girls he knew having sex on his bed. He said he was a gentleman and didn't stick around to watch, then locked eyes with me and asked if I'd ever been in a situation like that. I said, well, I've lived in apartments, so I've heard people sometimes, but he pushed further asking, no, but have you ever walked in on something like that? I told him no, and said it was an odd story to tell someone he just met, then changed the topic. He went on about himself a lot after that. He'd ask me questions, but he'd cut me off when I tried to answer and keep talking about himself. Something felt strange. He wasn't the same polite guy I'd met at the restaurant. He leaned over the table a lot and made a noticeable effort to lock eyes with me. I don't mind eye contact, but it felt more like a stare down. After a bit, I could feel myself leaning back as he leaned in closer. Then he started saying how he used to pick up girls but stopped because he figured the ones he met at bars were probably sluts who went there every weekend. Next, he wanted to know if I drank, smoked, did drugs, if I ever partied, where I liked to go out, if I was seeing other guys, question after question, almost no breaks. We talked a few more minutes until he glanced at his phone and said, the game I wanted to watch is starting soon. Want to get out of here. Turns out there was a basketball game on, and he wanted me to come back to his place to watch it. I said, no thanks, we just met, so I'm not comfortable with that, but maybe we can talk again soon. His face shifted, and he said, I'm sorry, but I really thought you were going to come back with me. I told him I wasn't sure how he got that idea. I hadn't said anything to suggest it. He kept asking me to come over, and I kept saying no. He kept asking why not, and I kept saying, I just met you. I'm not comfortable going to your house. He said, fine, let's go to the park then. Red flags and alarm bells were going off in my head, so I said, no thanks, I'm not interested. He basically begged, saying he'd even skip the game if I wanted. I said no again, told him to just go home, that we'd only met for coffee, and it wasn't a big deal if we didn't take it further today. Then he asked me to take a walk in the field behind a coffee shop, looked down, and said, I'll do anything you want, just don't leave. I repeated that I wasn't going anywhere else with him that day, asked him to respect that, and said we'd talk later. I got into my car, and as I pulled away, he yelled out his window, I want to do everything I can to change your mind. Come over. I sat there watching him leave because it all just felt so weird. I drove home, and my phone started blowing up. He was texting and calling nonstop, saying he was home and I should come over. Then he sent a video of himself watching basketball on his couch alone. He started sending messages saying he could see a future with me, that I was the most beautiful woman he'd ever met, that it was terrible for such a beautiful woman to be single, and that he liked our chances to be together. The whole coffee date had lasted maybe 40 minutes tops. He kept asking me to come over, and I said I was fine meeting for coffee, but reminded him I'd told him I wasn't coming over before I left and wasn't changing my mind. Then the calls really kicked in. 7:55, 8 o'clock, 8:02, 8:07, 8:11. He called and called for hours. I texted him after the first few calls because he'd sent another text about how beautiful and perfect I was and how he wanted to date and travel together. All I could think to say was, I'm sorry, I don't feel the same way about you that you seem to feel about me. I wish you well, take care. He said he didn't understand. Did that mean I didn't want to see him again? So I replied, I'm sorry for not being clear. No, I don't want to see you again. I wish you well, goodbye. The calls and texts kept coming. I told him once to please stop, but I had to turn off my phone because it wouldn't stop buzzing. The texts were all about what he did wrong, why I wouldn't tell him so he could fix it and make this work, that he's really a great guy and likes me so much that I owed it to him to tell him, and if I did, he'd stop bothering me. I blocked his number, but my phone still logged blocked call attempt, so I could see he kept calling all night until 2 a.m. He called a few more times that morning and again that afternoon. I called my phone company to check, and he'd sent over 200 texts that day. That was the breaking point. I went to the police station to at least talk to them and maybe report it as suspicious behavior or harassment. All I had was his first name, which I think was a nickname, and his phone number. The cops were really nice and took down all the details. He hadn't threatened me, but I told him to stop, and he wouldn't. They said it was enough to be worried about. I showed them the texts and call timings, and they said it definitely looked obsessive and unstable, and it was smart to come in, even just to have it on record in case things escalated. I felt bad for even going there, like it was dumb to have met him, but I'd done tons of coffee dates before, and no one had ever pulled this. After leaving the station, I got home and checked my phone. 3 voicemails from unknown numbers. It was him begging me to call and tell him how to make it right, saying he didn't get why I blocked him, asking if he messaged too much or if calling 80 times in a night was a bad move, and why I wouldn't just talk to him. I recorded the voicemails and sent them to the police with screenshots of the messages and logs from my phone company. Now I'm quietly terrified of what's next. Will the cops call him? If they do, will it piss him off? I'm pretty sure I didn't tell him anything about where in the city I live or work. All he had was my number, no Facebook, WhatsApp, or other socials. I thought about changing my number, but I'm also hoping he'll give up after a few days of silence. I'm so stunned, I don't know what to do next. Update, May 22nd, 2018. He's been texting and calling from random numbers all day. I've been taking screenshots and sending them to the police with my report number. It's been a long, draining day. I really want to change my number, but he keeps sending stuff, and I feel like it might help the police figure out who he is. I've told my family, friends, employer, cell provider, and building caretaker about this lunatic, giving them a description. I went out and bought 100 plus decibel alarms for my apartment's windows and doors and set them up. I'm in Canada, so I can't legally carry mace, but I'm looking for alternatives. Mega update. Today, he sent a long, rambling message begging for another chance and forgiveness. He said he was just overly excited to meet such a beautiful and well-endowed woman and needed one chance to show me his true worth, pleading for me to reply and meet him. He signed his name at the bottom. I'd heard it slightly wrong and didn't have the right spelling in my phone. I went on Facebook, found his profile. No security settings, not friend with anyone I know. I copied the link and sent it to the cops. I'm torn between hoping they can knock some sense into him and being scared that if they confront him, he'll go even crazier. I'd have slept better if I'd changed my number right away, but I might not have gotten his real name and profile if I had. I doubt the cops will do much unless he starts threatening me. Now I'm stuck. Do I change it and sleep easier, or let him keep yelling into the void while I gather more evidence? Is it worth it? I keep thinking all he has is my number. Update, May 28, 2018. The last I heard from my coffee date was about 4 days ago, when he called at 12:56 a.m. on the 24th. He'd been texting from the same number a few days before with that lovely message about me being well endowed, so I'm pretty sure it was him. I'm honestly feeling burnout. I'm taking tomorrow off work to relax. This has been a lot on top of work and life. I haven't heard much from the cops, just a couple confirmations they've added my screenshots and voicemails to the file, nothing more. He hasn't threatened me, and his energy seems to be fading, so I doubt I'll hear more unless something shifts. Here's hoping there's no reason for the police to get more involved than just saying, "Thanks for the info, we've added it to your file." They have his name, picture, and Facebook profile. I blocked him on Facebook and hidden all my profile pics. I haven't gotten any friend requests on my socials. I'm careful when I go out, the alarms help. Both magnetic and glass break ones are installed. At least if this idiot figures out where I live and tries to get in, I'd hear it and could get the hell out. I tucked a hammer between my headboard and mattress. It feels gross every time I get in bed and hear it tap the wall, but I'm glad it's there. Update, March 17, 2020. I haven't checked this account since my last update, and now that most of the world's in quarantine, I figured I'd log in and see. First, thanks to everyone who checked on me. I'm totally fine. Back then, I was freaked out and just wanted to forget it. I hope no one worried too much, and I'm sorry if you did. I'm glad I posted it initially because I was so overwhelmed, it was tough to sort through. Things are 100% better now, so thank you all for the support. After my last update, I had a few weeks of quiet, then got 2 or 3 calls from a weird landline number. I did a reverse 411 lookup. The address was near the coffee shop where we met. I remembered he'd said he lived a couple blocks away when he tried to get me to his basement. I sent screenshots of the calls and the address to the police email I had and decided to change my number. It was a huge hassle, but I slept better. I've been back to the restaurant twice and never saw him. I avoid the area where we met for coffee. It still makes me jumpy if I see someone who looks like him, but I tell myself his behavior means he'd cling to anyone who paid him attention, so he's probably latched onto someone else by now. That's scary in its own way. I hope he gets his shit together and treats other women better than he treated me. Wishing you all well, stay safe inside and take care. This happened a few years ago in my old one-person apartment. For a few days, I'd had this weird feeling that something wasn't right. Like I was pretty sure there was less food in the fridge than I'd left there the last time, and I found pillows from my couch on the floor. I lived alone back then, so no one else had access to my place, or so I thought. Well, one night I woke up around 1 a.m., sweating buckets. I don't remember the dream, but I'm sure it was a nightmare because I was soaked. I decided to take a shower to cool off, so I brought my phone into the bathroom for some music, turned on the water, and stepped in. A few minutes into it, I heard the door move. I never close it fully, but it doesn't just shift on its own either. I peeked through the shower curtain and saw a shadow against it. A quick glance at my phone confirmed it. Someone was there. I could see a reflection in the screen of a person standing right next to the curtain. It took everything in me not to scream. I kept acting like I hadn't noticed, quietly unhooking the shower head from its holder and cranking the water all the way to hot. I'm still kind of proud of how fast I thought on my feet. Our water got scalding when you turn it up full blast, and within seconds steam was rising, and the water was burning my feet as it flowed toward the drain. I spun around, ripped the shower curtain open, and aimed the shower head right at the person behind it. It was a woman. She screamed in pain. I swung the shower head and smacked her in the face with it, then jumped out of the shower and bolted for the door. I grabbed the key from the lock, slammed the door shut behind me, and locked it. A little later, she started banging on the door, but it held. Thank God for solid German craftsmanship. I called the cops and ran to the kitchen to grab my big kitchen knife, just to feel safer. My throat felt like it was closing up when I saw the knife was gone, and I realized there was only one place it could be right now. The police showed up, arrested the woman, and it turned out she was a former tenant who'd been evicted for not paying rent. Apparently, she made a copy of the key and had been sneaking into my flat when I was at work or sometimes at night. It's possible she's what woke me up in the first place, and honestly, I don't even want to think about that. Ever since then, I've always insisted on having the locks changed whenever I move into a new place. Edit. Since a lot of people asked, I found the knife later in the bathroom. She definitely brought it with her, and either the police disarmed her or she dropped it herself at some point. This all started after I got a friend request recently that jogged my memory, so I'll share the story here. It kicked off when I went to university at 18. I made an effort to make friends after moving onto campus and ended up with a few groups to hang out with, including a new girlfriend and plenty of classmates I got along with well enough. There was this one class before lunch where it was tradition for people to head to the cafeteria afterward in pairs or small groups. I wasn't picky about who I ate with since I clicked with most of the class, and we were all trying to be social. So when a girl named Lily asked if I wanted to grab lunch together after class, I didn't see any reason to say no. We talked about school and basic stuff, nothing special, but she did ask me to eat with her again the next week. It turned into a routine, and there wasn't really a polite way to start saying no out of the blue. It was fine, but it meant I missed out on eating with other people on those days. Looking back, I guess that was probably her goal. One day in class, I asked someone if I could add them on social media. Lily was a couple seats over and heard it. Her head snapped toward me so fast it was impossible to miss, and I still remember that sharp reaction. By the time I got home later, she'd sent me a friend request. No mutual friends, and I don't know how she got my last name. I was surprised, but figured she dug through the university's social media pages and tracked me down that way. It gave me a bad vibe, but I told myself it was probably fine. She started messaging me a ton and commenting on everything I posted. I brushed it off, thinking she was just awkward, and we became sort of friends, though not close. She still always got me to eat lunch with her after our shared class, but other than that, we didn't hang out much in person. I'd see her around sometimes, but I never went out of my way to spend time with her. It was mostly online chats and group settings. Coincidentally, my girlfriend was also named Lily, which clearly bugged this Lily, not my girlfriend, who couldn't care less since it's a common name. She dropped hints that she wanted my girlfriend to pick a different name or make little jokes about how it didn't suit her. She obviously didn't like my girlfriend, and I had no clue why. It got harder to ignore when she started subtly hinting she had a crush on me. I avoided addressing it. What was I supposed to say? I've never been good at handling friends making moves on me, and I wasn't interested at all. Even without the weird stuff, she wasn't my type. She dressed and acted like a mix between a 1950s housewife and one of those adults obsessed with Disney princesses, if you can imagine that. Things got awkward on the last day of our shared class that year. Instead of asking me to lunch like usual, she asked if I'd go for a walk with her. I didn't know how to say no, so I agreed. Our campus bordered a big patch of woodland, and she led me into the trees until the sounds of other students faded away. She sat on a log, I sat too, and she started talking about how she'd miss me over the summer. I tried to lighten the mood, but I didn't want to be there, especially since she seemed on the verge of tears. I think I mumbled something about plans with my girlfriend to leave, but before I could, she leaned in and kissed me out of nowhere. It was uncomfortable, to say the least. I got out of there fast, glad I wouldn't see her for a while. I came back to university after the summer, moved into a house with friends, and hit some rough patches, petty arguments, bigger fights, and I broke up with my girlfriend at the start of the school year. It was a mess, but it made me rethink things with Lily. It didn't seem as bad anymore. Still, I didn't want to be alone with her. We mostly talked online since she kept messaging me constantly. One upside was I started dating a guy, which Lily wasn't thrilled about. I think she hoped to swoop in after my breakup, but that was never happening. There wasn't much gap between my breakup and this new relationship, so she probably felt she'd missed her shot. Here's where it gets bad. I was pretty active on Tumblr back then, posting about my life, reblogging photos, that kind of thing. One day, I noticed something weird. A blog I followed got an ask with phrases I recognized. It hit me that they were from my About page. I froze. Someone had sent this random person a chunk of my text, asking them to analyze what kind of person would write it. It was messed up, like I was a character in a book they were dissecting. The ask wasn't anonymous. It linked to a blog. Obviously, I had to see who was so obsessed with me. I didn't think anyone I knew in real life, except my boyfriend, knew my page. Well, no surprise, it was Lily. Her blog was this cutesy pink and red mess with a few posts about her interests, but most of it was about me, her main obsession. She'd written about things I'd done recently, stuff I'd told her, like going to a nightclub, plus details from way back when we first met. She'd been tracking me online and off, collecting every bit of info she could and hoarding it there. She wrote about our lunches like they were special dates, not just casual meals after class. She described that kiss in the woods like it was mutual, not her forcing it on me. She quoted lyrics from my favorite song, said she'd always been there for me no matter who else came into my life, and kept referencing loving me just the way I am, which explained an anonymous love letter I'd gotten earlier that year with the same line. It got worse. She posted nasty stuff about my boyfriend, how he didn't deserve me, didn't appreciate me, and how she'd be jealous of anyone near me if she were with me, so his lack of jealousy meant he didn't love me. It was angry, hateful stuff I didn't want to imagine coming from someone fixated on me. One thing confused me at first. She kept mentioning her best friend, Steven. She'd never brought him up to me, but her posts gushed about how great he was, how much fun they had, how he looked out for her. I wondered if he was an online friend until one post clicked. She'd shared a photo from my own page captioning it. Steven sent this to me, he knew I'd love it. Except I hadn't sent it, she'd taken it from me and pretended this made-up Steven gave it to her. In her twisted fantasy, she'd split me into two people, the perfect best friend always there for her, and the soulmate she was destined to end up with once I ditched my sweet, kind boyfriend and all the easy girls she complained about in dozens of posts. She wasn't just writing to herself, she had an audience. She'd ask open questions about our relationship, and her followers would reply, taking her word as truth. I saw strangers agreeing my boyfriend didn't deserve me, that we'd break up soon, and I'd end up with her, the obvious choice. She built this fake fanfiction version of my life for anyone to weigh in on, casting herself as the hero. I scrolled maybe a month back in her blog, couldn't stomach more, so I don't know how long it had been going on. I messaged her, confronting her about it. She said nothing. I can't stress how bizarre it was to find pages dedicated to me, her declaring her love and how we'd end up together, trashing my boyfriend, and weaving a fantasy with two versions of me she seemed to believe was real, then acting like I hadn't said a word when I called her out. She didn't respond, just changed the subject, even after I pushed. It was like she didn't register it. She deleted the blog or renamed and hid it since I never found it again. But it wasn't over. I wasn't going to hang out with her anymore, but we still got stuck together in classes, and she started to scare me. What might she do next? I'm kind of paranoid, and knowing someone had been obsessively tracking me for who knows how long freaked me out. Her next move was trying to seduce my boyfriend. Pointless and awkward. He told me right away. What was her plan? Tell me he cheated, so I dump him. Why would I pick her after that? It didn't work. She hit on 3 of my other friends. None took the bait. She dated one of my old housemates for a bit, still messaging me that she'd rather be with me. No thanks. She stayed in my life the whole time I was at university. Once I tried pulling away, and she spread rumors about me, tanking a career opportunity I'd work hard for. I don't know what else she did behind my back, but I learned it was safer to let her think she was part of my life while ignoring her than to risk pissing her off. After graduation, she still wanted to hang out, but I didn't have to anymore. I made excuses about work and barely replied. I mostly stopped posting on social media she knew about. She didn't quit easily. She'd try starting chats, asked to meet up, attempts I usually ignored. I hated thinking she was still tracking me online, but she probably was. She'd occasionally mention things I'd posted somewhere she shouldn't have seen. The last real talk we had was out of nowhere. We hadn't spoken in months, nothing serious in years. It still creeps me out, but here's the gist. She asked how long I'd known I was queer. I gave her basic answers I'd tell anyone. Then she switched gears, asking how I'd feel about her if she were a boy, saying she'd be a boy for me. It got creepy fast. She went into detailed fantasies about us. We weren't friends by then, never super close from my view, and hadn't talked in ages. I wouldn't send that to a close friend, let alone a near stranger. I told her to cut it out, but she shifted tactics. She sent a photo of herself, then a flood of messages, 4 or 5 a minute, too fast to reply, repeating stuff I just told her about my past like it had happened to her. She was role-playing as me, And the worst part was she seemed to believe it, like she was stealing my life and making it hers, even quoting me word for word from hours earlier. I didn't talk to her after that. I ignored her later attempts and eventually quietly deleted her from my inactive social media, her only way to reach me. I thought she might move on. A few days ago, she sent me a friend request. It's sitting there unanswered. I know if I delete it, she'll just send another. We met nearly 12 years ago. This is just the highlights, only what I know for sure. Plenty happened behind my back, I'm certain. So to the girl who spent 12 years obsessing over me, fetishizing me, stalking me, and harassing me, let's not meet again. That fantasy life you built for us in your head is the only place you'll ever see me. This happened years ago when I was 11 years old. I was staying home alone with just my little brother, who was 7 at the time. It was around 9 p.m., dark outside, and pouring rain. We were reading in our room, which was right next to the front door with a big window and the blinds open. That's when the doorbell rang, followed by knocking. I thought it might be my parents coming home, odd though, since they usually use the garage or their keys. I looked outside to check for their car, but all I saw was rain. As I got closer to the door, I heard a man's voice, not my dad's, yelling through the downpour. "Would you like some cookies?" "We're selling Girl Scout cookies." I was stunned. Who sells Girl Scout cookies at this hour, in this weather? I didn't say anything, just checked the peephole and peeked through the side window. My heart sank. It wasn't a dad with his daughter like I'd half expected. It was just a grown man, maybe in his late 50s, standing there soaking wet on my doorstep. No cookie boxes in sight. I can still feel that gut-wrenching panic as I checked the locks with him right on the other side. He must have heard me fumbling with him. The 2 locks were all that stood between me, my brother, and this potential creep. He kept knocking and talking about his cookies while I debated calling the cops. Then I remembered the blinds were wide open in our room, where my brother was still reading, with the light on. I turned the corner into the doorway and saw the guy carefully peering into our window, probably eyeing me earlier, and now my brother, who was distracted with his book. My heart was pounding as panic set in. It took every ounce of courage. I had to rush over, flip off the lights, and yank the blind shut right in front of him as fast as I could. I double-checked every lock in the house, closed all the blinds, and told my brother to go hang out in one of the big closets in the middle of the house. No windows there. I didn't tell him what was happening so he wouldn't freak out, and for some reason, I never did call the cops or my parents. I just sat in the hallway, waiting until the guy left. Thinking about it still gives me chills. So many things could have gone wrong that night. My worst fear was that stranger getting to an unlocked door before I could. This happened a few years ago when I was in my early 20s, studying in Paris, France. My name's Claire. I was heading home from university. I usually took a short bus ride and walked the rest of the way. That day, I felt a bit uneasy. I could sense some guy staring at me hard on the bus. I was used to annoying, unwanted looks, but this felt different, almost predatory. It's tough to explain, but I felt like prey being hunted. I decided to get off a few stops early to shake him and keep him from seeing my usual stop. Like in the movies, I waited until someone else hit the stop button, then stood up at the last second and hopped off. I didn't spot him getting off too, so I started to relax, thinking I dodged an awkward situation. But when I glanced over my shoulder, there he was a few meters behind me. I got this sinking feeling he just looked away the moment I turned. I walked into a shop, pulled out my phone, and pretended to take a call. Once I couldn't see him anymore, I slipped out and hurried home as fast as I could, checking behind me the whole way. I zigzagged through busy streets, crossing at every chance. I convinced myself him getting off at the same stop was just a coincidence until I reached my building. I looked back one last time, and there he was staring at me with his creepy smirk. I bolted up to my apartment, taking the stairs 4 at a time. I got inside, locked the door, and froze when the intercom buzzed. I don't know why I answered it. I regretted it the second I did. I could hear the intercom from the flat across the hall ringing too. He was pressing every button, hoping someone would let him in. Then he said my name, Claire, and I realized he knew it now. Oh damn. I felt like a deer caught in headlights, totally stuck. "Open the door, please," he said in this pleading voice. "I just want to talk to you." I couldn't move or speak. "Come to the window," he added. "Look at me, you'll see I'm not a bad guy." Something clicked. He was trying to figure out which apartment was mine. No way was I falling for that. I hung up, shocked, and stood by the door without moving for what felt like hours. When I finally calmed down a bit, I called my long-distance boyfriend. "Call the police," he said right away. Why didn't I think of that? I don't know. Maybe I was scared of making a big deal out of nothing. What an idiot I was. Instead, I called my best friend because I didn't want to be alone. I told her everything, and after a while, I felt safer. We even started laughing about it. Then the intercom rang again. 2 hours had passed since I got home. I answered. "Claire," he said. "Open, please." Those chills hit me again. He was still there, waiting all that time. I stayed silent, petrified. He was quiet too, but I could feel him out there. "Claire, let me in. I'm so thirsty," he said. "Just give me a glass of water." That broke the tension a little. I hung up, curled into a ball in the corner, like the recovery position, and stayed there, terrified. I waited, too scared to make a sound. I knew he couldn't hear me from the hall, but I was even afraid to breathe. The intercom kept buzzing again and again. I didn't pick up. I crouched by the sofa and eventually passed out from exhaustion. It rang one more time in the middle of the night. I woke up the next morning, scared to leave my place. I called my dad, who came to pick me up. No one was in the hall, but there was a note in my mailbox. "Claire, I'm a nice guy. You should have opened to me." We went straight to the nearest police station. The cops listened and, of course, told me I shouldn't hesitate to call them next time. My dad got a locksmith to install a digital code on the building door that same day and wrote a note to all my neighbors asking them not to let in anyone they weren't expecting. He sat at the cafe across from my building with 2 friends every evening for over a week. We never saw the guy again after that. Now I take a different route to and from uni every day. I keep my phone gripped tight and glance back every few steps. I still watch my surroundings like a hawk and never answer the door unless I'm expecting someone. So people, if you ever feel off about a situation, call the police. Don't be an idiot like me. Stay safe, everyone. This happened a few summers ago, right before I started college. I just turned 18 and was raised in a strict but loving Christian home in a Bible Belt part of the States. My parents weren't unreasonable. They set rules with good intentions, but like most teens, I've been a few along the way. That summer, I started dating a slightly older guy I knew from high school. His name was Johnny, and he was already at the college I'd be attending soon. Johnny was a catch. Super handsome, a former football player on a full academic scholarship, funny, talented, and charming, hardly anything not to like. We bonded over not drinking and our love of pranks. Best of all, he had his own apartment at college, a 4-hour drive from my parents' place. I could sneak up there pretending to visit a friend or stay over at a local girlfriend's house. My parents didn't even know I had a boyfriend. I was enjoying my rebellious streak and new freedom, but I still lived mostly by their guidance and rules. They'd always encouraged me to think for myself and figure out my own values, and I ended up a lot like them because they're honestly pretty great. My mom had wisely told me not to sleep with just anyone, and I took that to heart. So while I was fine having sleepovers with Johnny, I was set on not having sex with him. He seemed to take it well and respect my choice. One week in the middle of summer, I had 3 days off work in a row, so I drove up to see Johnny. I hit the road early, and he was excited to see me. We had a blast that day, Nerf gun battles, reading Stephen King, making out. We went out for dinner and came back for what I thought would be more fun. But when we got to his apartment, Johnny pulled out a box of condoms. He'd tried this before, so I wasn't fazed and firmly told him it wasn't happening. What unfolded next still haunts me. His smile vanished, and his eyes turned cold, chillingly cold. I was sitting at his dining room table, my back against the wall, while he stood at the other end of the small table. "You make me sick," he said. "I'm sick of you. You play me, all you do is play me." We were big on pranks and sarcasm, so even though his tone made my skin crawl, I figured he was joking. I'd known him for years after all. "I've thought about this for a long time, and you're dead," he went on. "I'm not doing this anymore. You make me so sick. I hate you, and you're dead." His voice was eerily calm, with a slight edge of anger I'd never heard before. I saw his fist clench, veins popping out along his arm. For the first time in our relationship, I felt unsafe. It was a second-floor apartment on campus, in the middle of summer, no one else around, no cars in the lot. Even if I could get past him, which I couldn't, my options were slim: unlock the balcony door and jump, or run 15 feet down the hall to the deadbolt front door that opened inward, then down a flight of stairs. Either way, I'd end up in an empty parking lot. I'd have to reach my car or sprint into the nearby woods. I'm athletic, but he'd overpower me easily. I kept my eyes on him, half convinced he was kidding. He had to break into a laugh any second and snap back to our perfect day. But he kept talking. I can't repeat it all. It was too graphic and tied to our exact spot to share publicly. He laid out a detailed plan. He'd assault me, and if I survived, he'd strangle me in the woods nearby, ones we'd explored together, and dump me in a secluded spot we'd found. He gestured to some junk on his counter and said, "That's where your body will be within an hour." I'd had enough. His plan was too thought out to be a spur-of-the-moment thing. I'm small but stubborn. I'd fight to the death if I had to. I've got a killer poker face when I need it. I locked eyes with him, summoning all the fierceness I could, stood up, and said the first thing that came to mind. I'm still proud of how steady I kept my voice, even though inside I was begging God to keep me alive. "You're real funny," I said. "I almost believed you for a second." Wouldn't have worked anyway. Before all that, I was going to tell you my dad asked me to come home tonight. He needs help first thing tomorrow with a garden for my mom's birthday since my brother hurt his back. I told him I'd call when I hit the road in half an hour. It was a lie, and not a great one, but I sold it. I dangled my phone in his face and said, "You can explain to my dad why I'm not coming home tonight if you want me to stay." His mouth dropped open as he stared at me. "I was just kidding," he mumbled, fists still clenched. "See you," I chirped, shoving past him. My gamble paid off. I grabbed my purse and walked down the hall, feeling his eyes burning into me, the air thick with tension. I screamed at myself internally to move slow as I undid the deadbolt. I stepped out and fought every urge to run down the stairs. I was too far from my car to outrun him if he chased me, and I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me scared. I walked the whole way across the parking lot. I always parked far out, right by the woods he'd said he'd kill me in. I knew he was watching. I could feel his gaze tracking me. As I drove past his place, I saw his shadow in the balcony window. I waved, he stared. I drove a few miles to the nearest Walmart. It was only 8 p.m., the sun just setting, people wandering the lot, oblivious to what I'd been through. I collapsed over my steering wheel and sobbed my eyes out, then drove the 4 hours home. Stupidly, I didn't know how to deal with it and buried it deep in my mind. I spent the next few years avoiding Johnny. The few times it crept back up, I blamed myself for being naive. I finally told my mom 4 years later and worked through it. So to my possible murderer ex-boyfriend, who thankfully lives about 10,000 miles away now, let's not meet again. It was Christmas time, and a blood-curdling scream woke me up at 3 a.m. My wife and I were staying at her childhood home, where her mother now lived alone, while not counting the cats. The house sat on a quiet cul-de-sac in the suburbs. Picture freshly mowed lawns, American flags, and empty sidewalks. That's the vibe. It's a single-story place with an attached garage out front. The garage has two doors besides the electric one to the garden and backyard, with an old doggy door from when they had their dog Max, rest in peace Max, covered by a piece of nailed in with that always made me a little uneasy, though I figure it had been that way for years, so what's the worst that could happen? The second door, a flimsy hollow core one, leads to the kitchen. It might stop a mouse, but not much else, definitely not someone determined to get in. We were sleeping in my wife's old bedroom at the front of the house. At 3 a.m., I was in that deep, dark sleep. You know, like you're in a diving bell, sunk hundreds of meters under black water, shielded from the world by miles of nothing. Then I heard it, the scream. "What are you doing?" It was my mother-in-law's voice, echoing down the hall. Even half drowned in sleep, it hit me like a jet engine roaring past. I shot upright. What happened next took seconds, but that scream, even though I was out cold, had an urgency that sank in. This wasn't a startled, "Oh, you scared me" yelp. It was different, and I knew it. Not fully awake, but my gut, that primal lizard brain we still got from way back, knew something was wrong. I'm into true crime, watch it, read it, and that scream triggered every fear I'd ever had about this stuff happening to me. In that moment, it sounded like someone was about to get murdered. You ever wonder if you're fight or flight? I always have, and that night I found out I'm a fighter. I leaped out of bed, let out a growl, yeah, a legit growl, in the deepest, toughest voice I could muster. "I want to kill you, you bastard," and took off running. I flung open the bedroom door and charged into the hallway. There, at the far end, stood my mother-in-law in her nightgown, her face frozen in shock. We locked eyes as I raced toward her. Then she turned her head and looked straight into the kitchen. I sped past her and rounded the corner into the kitchen. The hollow core door was smashed to bits, shards everywhere. I looked through the empty frame and saw the electric garage door wide open. I pushed forward, running into the garage, and heard it, the sound of someone jumping into a running car just out of sight. By the time I hit the driveway, I saw a car peeling out from the sidewalk next to the house. Adrenaline was still pumping, and who am I to argue with it? So, like a damn fool, I ran barefoot after it. I gave it a solid try, but I'm no Olympic sprinter. Not even Michael Johnson could catch a speeding car. It vanished down the street, leaving me alone out there. The police showed up within 3 minutes, which, I've got to say, makes me feel better about my mother-in-law living there. They took her statements. My mother-in-law said she'd heard a noise or a voice, then the hollow core door getting kicked in. She walked into the kitchen and came face to face with the intruder, a small framed woman. The cops figured she was part of a team. Her job was to squeeze through the doggy door, kick in the kitchen door, and open the garage for her partner. They think the burglars assumed no one was home. Lucky for us, my mother-in-law must have startled her, plus my macho growling probably helped. It feels good knowing everyone was safe and finding out I've got some fight in me. For the record, we replaced that flimsy door with the heaviest damn wooden one you've ever seen. I like to see a mouse try to get through that. I'm the stalker. You know how TV shows and movies usually show abductors driving white or black vans? I didn't realize that stereotype until I bought a white 1994 Dodge Ram cargo van to haul gear for work. While driving it, I've been pulled over and searched by cops 3 times for no reason, but that's a different story. The point is, some people see vans as shady. One day, I was driving home down my street, going slow over the speed bumps because I had expensive, delicate equipment in the back. A woman pushing a stroller stared at me the whole time. I gave her a friendly, neighborly smile, but she kept staring so hard she nearly walked the stroller off the curb. I thought it was funny and almost forgot about it. A week later, our HOA email thread blew up. A guy sent out a notice saying his wife and toddler were being stalked by a man in a white van. Worried about a pitchfork mob coming after me by mistake, I replied to everyone, explaining I live in the neighborhood and drive a white van. I even gave my license plate number and address. Big mistake. I jokingly added that I'd also seen a suspicious person, a woman with a stroller staring at me so long and hard it made me uncomfortable, and I included the date and time to see if their stalker was just me. Turns out it was. The guy lost it. He started firing off email after email, CCing everyone, saying he could read between the lines of what I'd said. His accusations got wilder and turned into personal attacks. Several neighbors chimed in, telling him he was acting like a jerk. The emails eventually stopped, but things got weirder. A few times while I was out walking my dog, a girl, maybe 10 years old, would come out of her house, run up to me, and awkwardly chat about my dog, throwing in oddly personal details about her life. I wondered why this kid was talking to strangers, but figured she might just know me from the neighborhood, so I humored her politely. Then one day, she showed up at my house. She said she was mad because her dad wouldn't let her have a dog like mine, so she wanted to visit mine for a while. I told her I'd need to talk to her parents before she could come over. She said okay and left, and I didn't see her again. I've got 2 daughters, and one of their friends told me this girl was the daughter of the guy from the HOA email meltdown. He'd been sending her out to talk to me and taking pictures. My daughter's friend knew this girl, who'd confided that her dad was making her uncomfortable with this setup. The guy was using his own kid as bait to try to catch me doing something, I don't know what. Here's a detail I forgot earlier. I got dash cams on all my vehicles and CCTV at my front door. The first run-in with a wife and the girl's visit were both recorded. I emailed the guy, nicely offering him copies of the videos from each incident. I also said I was worried his daughter was acting inappropriately towards strangers. That must have thrown a wrench in his plan, because I never heard from him again. A creepy kid tried to get my 5-year-old to walk off with him at the park today. This just happened, and it's been messing with me all day and night. I can't stop thinking about it. I took my 5-year-old son and 3-month-old daughter to the playground to meet a friend and her daughter. It's a regular park with swings and slides, a big parking lot, and a grassy area surrounded by trees. On the other side of the trees, there's some kind of development project going on. The area around the school is pretty rural, just twisty roads and scattered buildings I'd never paid much attention to until now. We got there and met up with my friend. Another mom we know was there too, with her 2 girls. The only other people around were a dad with a little girl and a boy who looked about 10 or 12. The moms were sitting, chatting, playing with my baby girl, having a good time. The kids were off playing together. Everything was fine. After a while, the kids from our group started wandering around the playground, doing their own thing. The seesaws are in a shady spot near a big stretch of grass, then the trees with that half-built area behind them. My son wanted to use the seesaw, but no one would join him, so I got up to help. Then this teenage-year-old boy came over and said to me, "Hi, do you want me to play with him?" It was a little odd that he asked me instead of my son, but I just said, "Sure, bud, go ahead." He got on the other side and started seesawing with my son. His vibe was so strange. He didn't smile, his voice was flat, and he didn't say a word to my son, just went up and down. My son didn't notice, happily chattering away at him. After a few minutes, I started walking back to the bench. I heard the boy start talking to my son. Okay, maybe he's just shy around adults. I sat down, got back to chatting with my friends. Then the dad walked by us, probably heading to his car. I smiled and said, "Hey, it was sweet of your son to offer to play with mine." He looked at me and said, "He's not my son. I don't know who he is." He walked over and asked if I wanted him to play with my daughter, then just kind of tagged along with us until you guys showed up. He laughed a little like, "Weird, right?" and shook his head. My stomach dropped. I looked over at the seesaws. They were gone. I jumped up, handed my daughter to my friend, and ran that way, yelling my son's name. I spotted them walking toward the trees, not close, maybe a football field away from the play area. This awful feeling hit me. I sprinted as fast as I could, shouting his name. He turned and started walking toward me, but the boy grabbed his arm and tried pulling him toward the trees. My son got upset and yelled, "Hey, let go of me." Normally, this side of my son drives me nuts. He hates being grabbed or pulled, and with his ADHD, frustration turns into aggression fast. But today, I was so grateful for it. He started punching the boy and headbutting him like a little wild animal. The boy let go as I reached them and ran off into the trees. My friends finally caught on that something was up. They were standing at the edge of the play area, looking confused. My son was crying. I was shaking. I didn't know what the hell just happened. I asked him where he was going. He said his friend wanted to take him to see Ryan from Ryan's Toy Reviews, his favorite YouTube channel he's obsessed with. He told the boy about Ryan, and the kid said he knew where Ryan lived and asked if my son wanted to go visit and play. Of course, my son said yes. I don't know what the kid's plan was. It was just a kid, but I don't think it was innocent. I have no idea why he'd lie, why he wanted to drag my son into the woods, why he was so off. Maybe it was nothing, but my gut says it wasn't. Edit. Just so everyone knows, I called the police this morning and reported it. I'm not sure how much good it did. They listened, asked questions, but didn't ask me to come in for a formal statement or anything. I'm calling the school tomorrow, too. Back in the late 90s, when I was 19, I made the brilliant decision to move from Oregon to Florida to live with my boyfriend at the time. Don't ever do that. I pictured white sand beaches and Mickey Mouse, but what I got was swamps, bugs, and dirt roads. It was a total shock to my system. We ended up in this dinky little town called Hawthorne, just outside of Gainesville. Don't ever go there. It had one stoplight, 4 stores, a Dollar General, Steve's Market, Art's Pharmacy, and Sonny's Barbecue, and that was it. Whoop-de-doo. I got a job at Ard's, now defunct, right in the middle of town. Since it was next to the grocery store, everyone stopped by. After about 3 months of working there, I walked in for my shift one day when the manager pulled me into his office. Spread across his desk were 30 to 40 open letters, all handwritten and addressed to me. "Do you know this person?" my manager asked. "No." "Read one." I picked up a cheerful yellow envelope. Inside were 2 handwritten pages and a magazine cutout of a woman with long blonde hair, just like mine. The manager watched as I skimmed the letter, my confusion growing with every word. It was mostly someone fantasizing about spending time with me. A lot of it was sword-level creepy. There were descriptions about my hair, washing it, smelling it, something about moonlight. Some sentences were highlighted, others underlined. My first thought, am I getting fired? "Do you know this David Elrod guy?" Then it clicked. Oh, him. The tall, lanky regular with thick glasses and frizzy dark blonde hair. He'd come in a couple times a week to buy Diet Coke and his mom's meds. Late 20s, clearly socially awkward, maybe even mentally off. Sometimes he'd linger at my register or stare, but I figured he just had poor social skills. Harmless compared to some of the other Florida weirdos I'd met. Until 2 weeks earlier when he touched my hair. Just reached out and stroked it while I was working. I'd yanked it out of his grip and he'd apologized. Weird, but whatever. I brushed it off. Now though, not so harmless. The manager told me David was being banned from the store and I was being sent home while they worked out the details. What details? Confused, I left. 2 hours later, there was a knock at my door. I looked out the window and saw what looked like a SWAT team, tactical gear, rifles, suits, uniformed cops. My stomach dropped. In slow motion, I opened the door. A female officer held up a stack of those damn letters. "Can we come in and talk about these?" Realizing the entire town had probably read them, I wanted to pass the hell out. I don't even know this guy. We sat on the couch. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my boyfriend glaring from the bedroom. The officer explained they'd gotten the letters from Ard's and tried to issue David a trespassing notice. But when they went to his place, he'd argued for 45 minutes that it was all a misunderstanding, that I wanted to talk to him. Then she dropped the bomb. "You should know. David killed and partially dismembered his mother when he was 12. He was released from a juvenile psych facility less than 4 years ago. Diet Coke. That's all my brain could latch onto. My mom's favorite drink. They found disturbing materials at his house. We believe he's been stalking you. David was arrested the next day after lurking in Ard's parking lot. Last I heard, he was sent back to the psych hospital, temporarily. I never got to read all the letters before they were locked away as evidence. Never found out what they'd found in his house. My boyfriend. Total dick about the whole thing. So a week later, I packed up and moved back to Oregon. Why stick around when Norman Bates has you in his crosshairs?